Uptown and Country and the Bluegrass Block will not be seen tonight, so that we may present the following special presentation.
People around here have such beautiful everything. Lakes, river, blue water, trees, beautiful flowers.
There's no special wind blowing across Muscle Shoals. There's no special star shining on Muscle Shoals.
I don't know, there's just something in the air.
Down in Alabama.
I suppose if you really went back as far as you can go, you'd have to think about Dexter Johnson, who is the uncle of Jimmy Johnson, presently with Muscle Shoals Sound. Dexter had a little old studio out in his backyard. Sue Richards did some early recording back there. This would have been in the latter part of the 50s, I believe. I don't want to date anybody, but it was way back there. And then after him, I think you've got to give some credit to Woody Richardson over in Lexington. He had a studio up there that came along about that time. And certainly you've got to give credit to people like James Joyner, who wrote the first hit tune that was ever recorded and produced from this area, A Falling Star, sung by Senator Bobby Denton in his first time around. It later became a hit record.
Bobby Denton was the first. He came to me from Cherokee. I don't know how he found out about me, that I was interested in music and was playing around with the music part. And I recall going out to one of my buses with a guitar and singing some songs for Bobby, and he selected Falling Star and another tune.
He got the guitar, and we sit down in that bus, and he sang A Falling Star to me. We were looking for a song to record, and he asked me if I thought that song would possibly be all right, and I told him that I thought it was a great song. And so we, of course, at that time, Muscle Shoals didn't have any recording facilities at all. WLAY was a local radio station that had a recorder that they recorded programs on and commercials and played back. It was about the only recording facilities that exist. We got a group together, and I think we had 2 microphones, and we didn't have a full-time engineer. The DJ on the air playing records engineered and taped the cutting of the songs, and we recorded the 2 songs there in the studio while the DJ was carrying on the air program, and we recorded A Falling Star.
I was on my way home from taking a ball team to play one night somewhere, and after leaving the boys at school, from there to my home, I witnessed a star falling, a beautiful star coming across the sky late at night, and this is where I got the inspiration and wrote the song. Just didn't take very long to write it. It was just an inspired type thing. From there, I began to perform the song at a friend's patio restaurant out on Shoal Creek. And he took interest in the song and began to question me about it, who wrote it. And I guess he encouraged me to do something with the song. And when Bobby Denton came along and liked the song, we recorded him. And from his version, Jimmy Newman heard the song, recorded it, and of course it made history from there. His was released in 1957. And to date, we've sold approximately 3 million records by various artists. No one particular artist has sold 1 million, but we've moved a lot of the records over the years. Very proud of it. It's a standard now.
fallen star. That's what you are. The twinkle in your eye came from the sky. You must have strayed from the Milky Way, a fallen star. That's what you are.
Rick Hall, James Yorner, Billy Sherrill, Tom Stafford. Those fellas all had a studio over in Florence, Alabama in the early part of the 60s. And it was up over the old drugstore in Florence, Alabama.
If you remember how they used to carton eggs back years ago, they had the cardboard partition between the layers of eggs, like there was a dozen eggs and then a layer. These things were real good for acoustics, and I remember when we started that thing, I would go around all the supermarkets and gather up these egg cartons, and with a staple gun we covered the walls and the ceilings to make our studio acoustics, and had blisters on my hands from all the stapling. But we had a real makeshift studio there, and Rick and me, and there was a friend of mine named Tom Stafford in Florence. Tom he's passed away now, but he was a songwriter, and we had worked together since I was probably 13, 14 years old. He had a lot of excellent ideas. I think Tom was ahead of his time in songwriting. Today he could be a real hit. But we started that little organization over there, and we called it, in the very beginning, we called it Bobby Denton Music, and it was publishing, and we were affiliated with BMI, and just didn't know anything about it. We didn't know anybody to place things with or anything, but we were trying to develop a group, and we had a black group. I've forgotten their official name, but we were trying to get demo records made of them, and we had gone to Nashville and bought about a $300 recorder that we thought was excellent. But we had a difference in opinion about the group. There was one person in the group that seemed to stand out, and he would have been possibly all right if the other people had cooperated with him, and we had conflicts, and so we decided to disband.
Rick Hall decided to stay and said he would give it a year, and if he didn't have any luck, that he would leave. They had called it Florence, Alabama Music Enterprises over in Florence, and when they busted up and Rick came over here, he changed the name of his studio to FAME, F-A-M-E, which is the first letters of Florence, Alabama Music Enterprises.
Well, as a producer, the first hit record I ever had as a record producer was on a black artist by the name of Arthur Alexander, and the tune was called "You Better Move On." It was a big hit record, and Arthur was a bellhop at the time at one of the old hotels in Sheffield, and we just he wrote the song and played it for me, and I thought it was a hit. So I went in and spent my own money in my little funky studio there in the old tobacco warehouse, and worked night after night, and we put it together and piecemealed it together, got it like we wanted it. Played it for all the labels in Nashville and all the CBS's and the Capitals and so forth. Nobody liked it. So finally, we played it to a disc jockey by the name of Noel Ball, who was the program director, our music director at a radio station in Nashville. He thought it was a hit and sent it to Randy Wood, who owned Dot Records, and that was my first deal as a record producer and my first hit recording. But it was a big record, very big record, top 10.
you better move on. Well, I know you can buy her fancy clothes and diamond rings, but I believe she's happy with me without those things. Still you beg me to set her free, but my friend, that will never be. You better move on.
After that, I was so excited about the fact that I had cut a hit record on a black artist, and I thought I had found the secret of getting into the music business, because I wasn't having that much success in Nashville. I'd had some success as a writer, but not a lot. I'd had a hit record on George Jones, and I'd had a hit record on Brenda Lee, who was hot at the time, that I wrote. But after I cut this hit record on this black act, Arthur Alexander, I went out immediately and started looking for other black acts, obviously. I signed up an artist from Robbins Rubber Company, a black act by the name of Jimmy Hughes. And that was my second production that I ever produced. And it was a hit also, a big hit. It was on VJ Records. So 2 out of 2, I figured it wasn't that bad, you know, so I was batting 1,000. So I became more aware of my talents, I thought, as a producer, and started putting a little less emphasis on writing and playing, and I began to make some pretty good bucks at that time, and I started making all these investments back into the recording facilities. Built myself a new studio, the studio I'm in now, with that money, and kept putting everything back into the hopper, all the proceeds from these hit records I was having as a producer. I put it right back into new equipment, new studios, new consoles and recorders, etc., etc. But the first guy to really come to Muscle Shoals and gave me the most help was Bill Lowry from Atlanta, Georgia. Bill's still in Atlanta, Georgia, and an old friend of mine. But Bill, if there's such a thing, I think is getting us off to a good start. Bill was the first help, because he brought Ray Stevens, he brought Tommy Rowe, he brought the Tams, all of which we had hit records on. He brought Jerry Reed, he brought Joe South. So he was the first contributor to the Muscle Shoals music. Jerry was quite helpful in the development. Looking back, I think he probably contributed more faster because he was part owner of Atlantic Records, and he had a lot more money to work with, and a bigger company and better distribution. And he was a record company, so when he pushed the button, things happened. So when he did come in, he brought me acts like Aretha Franklin.
If you wanna do right, home days, woman, you gotta be a do-right, home night man.
Wilson Pickett.
Mustang Sally. Guess you better slow your Mustang down.
He was quite proud of what he was coming up with in Muscle Shoals. He started spending a lot of time, a lot of energies, and a lot of money, and we became sort of his base of operations out of the South. Wilson Pickett was a great artist. It was hot as a firecracker. And Jerry had him over at Stax Records with Jim Stewart and the people there in Memphis. And he'd had some sort of a falling out with Jim Stewart and his people, because they had Stax label and were very successful with Otis Redding and with Sam and Dave. had their own thing pretty well locked in, and they were using Atlantic as Atlantic owned the label or distributed the label for them. But they'd become almost independent in their own right. They were almost too powerful for Atlantic to control. So there's some sort of dispute about the studio facilities with regard to the fact that Jerry couldn't use the studio because they had their artist in there and he needed a place to record. So he came to me, and I guess I became the follow-up successor that Stax and their organization in Memphis had been until that point. Wilson had had a hit record or two. He had with Stax, Jerry and Stax, a hit record called 6345789, and he'd had a thing called Midnight Hour, and I think Aris was to be his third hit record. So the first hit record I had with him that I produced was Land of a Thousand Dances.
Got to know how to hold it, like on him a rolling, mashed potato, do the alligator, put your hand on your hips, yeah, let your backbone slip, do the 1, 2, say, like my little Lucy.
And then we cut several big hit records: Funky Broadway, Mustang Sally, Hey Jude.
Hey Jude, don't make it bad. Take a sad song and make it better.
Wilson was a very hard, tough, energetic human being who had grown up in Prattville, Alabama, and was living in New York at the time. And he'd had the taste of success, so he was very tough to work with. I liked him, and he liked me. We were good friends, but he was stern and had a tremendous temper, and he just wouldn't do to play games with. You know, you had to be business with him, and he was a businessman, a good businessman. But he could be a strong-willed man and a violent man if you got him upset. Yeah, we had some incidents that was unpleasant from time to time in the studio. So Jerry was so impressed with our work with Wilson that he brought in Aretha. And Aretha, of course, was a very quiet lady, never said anything, always had her songs down, never saw her use a lyric sheet. She had her songs learned from start to finish and played the piano on all her tunes. And if she did a song 50 times, she'd do it exactly the same way 50 times. Never was no weak versions of it. She always did it as good or better than the last cut. And we cut 2 sides when she first came in, and didn't think we had a hit. We didn't think we had anything. We were all depressed at the end of the day. Jerry was depressed, I was depressed, she was depressed, the writers were depressed. Chips Moman, who is also a big record producer now and a good friend of mine, and Dan Penn, the writers, they were the writers on one of the tunes. But it was a 2-sided #1 record. And we were so tired, we really didn't know how good it was until we analyzed it later. And Jerry called me back from New York and says, "Man, we have got an absolute smash, two smashes." So we cut 2 sides that day, and both were #1 records.
You've gotta be a do-right, hard man. 'Cause I ain't never loved a man the way that I love you.
Clarence was always a joy to work with. He was one of my dear friends, a brilliant man. He was a blind man, of course, from birth. But he had a degree in music. He read Braille very well. And most of his records were cut by me whispering the lyrics in his ear, and he would sing them into the microphone. He seemed to be able to get a better feel that way than he could to read them off Braille. And of course, he'd lose his paper. He'd hold Braille on his leg and to feel it, you know, because he couldn't just hold it up on a piece of paper and read it. And it was kind of tough for him to read and sing at the same time. But Clarence was a joy to work with. He was extremely talented, extremely helpful, and extremely level-headed, and just an extraordinary person, a good human being. And so all of them were. Wilson was and Aretha was, but Clarence was a very humble man and a good, hard-working man, and was always fun and always laughing and always kept everybody up in the studio, and he was a joy to work with. And our first hit on him was a while coming. We had 2 or 3 tries before we finally struck pay dirt with him. But once we started happening, each record got a little bigger than the last one. We gained a little more momentum, and finally, Patches was a big one.
Quinn Ivy lives about 3 doors down the street from me, and Quinn, in the early days, had a record store here, and Quinn was with WLAY radio. He and David Johnson both worked at the same time at WLAY.
I guess I got started back in '65 when I got into radio as a disc jockey, and was working with Quinn Ivy. And Quinn, soon after that, built a recording studio down in Sheffield, and started recording weddings and demos and gospel groups, and came across Percy Sledge and cut When a Man Loves a Woman, and I shortly went to work with Quinn, and got out of radio and got into the music business and started just engineering and doing a little bit of promotion, anything I could do to learn, and worked with Quinn from '68 till '73, and then I bought the studio from Quinn and started doing my own productions and operating the studio.
It just happened out the clear blue sky with me. You know, like when I was in high school, mostly all of my classmates and guys that was knowing me during that time, like doing high school proms and stuff like that, singing, they all predicted me to be a singer in my future, you know. But during that time, I didn't have singing on my mind. I was mostly into what your baby said, baseball. I wanted to play baseball so bad, and I was good at it too. And plus, when I did When a Man Loves a Woman, I had just left the baseball field. I had my spikes on and short pants, and I pulled my shoes off, and I did it barefooted. I didn't have no shoes on or nothing. And so Quinn calls me up and asks me, say, hey man, look here, you feel like singing? You want to come cut When a Man Loves a Woman? I say, well, I just got through practicing baseball, you know. He said, well, come on, you know. So I goes over there with red clay all through my mouth. But When a Man Loves a Woman was a song that was, it's a song that come along every once in a while. It was, you take people like Otis Redding, Stevie Wonder, Frank Sinatra. Frank Sinatra did this thing, Strangers in the Night. It's a fantastic song. But When a Man Loves a Woman, you know, it's just something that don't very, very often happen with artists. I see When a Man Loves a Woman was me. It excited me. It really excited me. But I didn't know for sure whether I could do it or not. Because, see, I had never been approached by nothing like that on record, you know. And so we goes over there, and we got a couple of microphones, a little small studio, you know, and boy, we cut some hell of a songs in there. But anyway, we have something like an 8-track. Marlon is over here playing the guitar. He tears this microphone down, he gives this to Gina. And he does this, you know. And so I'm standing there, barefooted, short pants on. And Percy, come a little closer to the mic. So, okay. Wheels away. That's it. That's it. We got a monster. We got a hit. You know, like, I said, what in the world is they talking about, you know? Because, see, I had never experienced nothing about having a hit record. And when Quinn and them started acting the way he was acting during that day when we got through with When a Man Loves a Woman, it was a shock to me because I didn't know what they were talking about. So about a few weeks later, when I go back to the studio, we all sitting around talking business. Then they explained to me we got a million seller, you know. And so they shipped the record to Atlantic Records, and they let Atlantic Records listen to the song, and Atlantic Records was crazy about it. But the only thing that was wrong with the session was that I was so into the song until I wasn't pronouncing my words clear enough. So they sent a track back and told Quinn that if you can get Percy Sledge to pronounce his words more clear, I think you guys have a giant. So we cut it over. This time, I wasn't barefooted. So we cut it over, you know, and we shipped it back, and they called us back and told Quinn and everybody, congratulations. We really think that you guys got a multi-million seller. And so 2 weeks later, we was on the charts, you know.
Of course, that's history. The rest of that, When a Man Loves a Woman, the all-time hit record of all time from here.
I was playing in Cape Town, South Africa. All right, that's when I had the big band, 27 pieces, big concert. Here I go sliding across the stage, you know. And see, I had this gimmick thing with the mic. See, I take the mic and I flip and I be looking this way, and on my drummer, the mic hits my hand, see? Right on my music, my drum beat, everything. Strictly professional. All right, so one night I go out there, we done did the show. I mean, we done did the whole tour for 17 weeks. This the last show we gonna do, and then we coming back home. Big success. I take the microphone, I flip it up, and it comes down, I reach for it. Rub it, falls right down in an old lady's lap. She said, "Is this what you're looking for?" And you could hear it all. You could hear it all over the damn theater, man. Everybody got so quiet. And then another thing, when I played the University of Auburn, Alabama, I never will forget this. These are my good times. Okay, I'm flying out of Atlanta. Oh, it's storming. So I had to charter a plane because the other flights are All right, so I get there 2 hours late. The place just jam-packed. Packed. So I walks in with my little bag in my hand. I walk to the door. My brother up on the stage, that's William. He said, "Ladies and gentlemen, please, he's coming. He chartered a plane out of Atlanta. He will be here soon. Ladies and gentlemen, please quiet down. Ladies and gentlemen, he's coming." So I walked through the door. "Ladies and gentlemen, there he is right now. They come through the door right now." And everybody got quiet. And somebody way back in the back said, "Bring the big fat black nigga on." When everything got quiet as a mouse, you can hear a mouse wet on cotton, you know. Well, bring the big fat black nigga on. And the place went up. Boy, you talk about a show that night. We put on a show. I could tell you so much about my career, man. It'll crack your side. Yeah, I finally got used to when a man loves a woman. It took me about a year. But see, I sung that song with so much meaning for my whole life. And that's the reason why it took me a while to catch on to it, you know. See, other people like it so much, and then I started using what they thought about it in my mind. And I mixed that with what I had done, and I understood it, and I liked it too. I liked the musicians that did it with me, and Quinn Ivy, the producer. I liked the whole story of that song. Matter of fact, I think the reason why I like this song so much is it's so true, number one, and plus it's me. You know, it's me. All them hard days working in the field, making my mama smile. I see all of this through this one song. And then all of my other songs, it's just a sprout to that one song. When a man loves a woman.
I went to work for Rick in '62, and you know, usual capacity, secretary, janitor, flunky, you know, the usual go for this and go for that type jobs. I was going to college and working in a band called Del Rey's at the time.
Actually, the band had already started, and I wasn't playing in it. But then Jimmy Evans, the drummer that was working with them at the time, he stopped playing with them, and I think it was about 1960 or 1961. I'm not really sure of all these dates, but Jimmy and I were looking toward the studio and studio work even as far back as then, because Jimmy's uncle, Dexter Johnson, had taken us to Memphis to see High Studio, where Willie Mitchell recorded Al Green and all those records that they made. But this was before Al Green started making hits. And I was about 14 and Jimmy was about 16, and Dexter took us to the studio up in Memphis, and we were just real impressed with it and decided then that that's what we wanted to do. They let us sleep in the studio that night, and of course, after the people left, we couldn't get any sleep at all. I woke up in the middle of the night about 2 o'clock in the morning or 3 o'clock in the morning, and I look up, and the control room was upstairs and the light was on up there, and I got up and I went up there, and Jimmy was sitting behind the console. He was looking at it, and he was amazed too at the studio. And so we spent a lot of time in there early that morning looking at the console and looking at the studio and the tape machines, and we were just looking at each other a lot saying, well, this is for us. Do we like this?
My family was planning a career for me in the tire business. My father had a tire store, and that's what I did in high school. I worked at the tire store in the afternoons, and I got married very young, and so I went to work at the tire store at the same time I was playing in this rock and roll band. And it would make my father so mad when I'd leave to go play the gigs. And I think finally when I started recording in 1966, he saw the writing on the wall. I could make more money, you know, in an afternoon recording than I could make all week at the tire store. And I loved the music thing, but I wouldn't give up on the tire thing until finally I said, look, I want to play. I don't want to be a tire person.
It took me a whole year to just learn how to play as a member of a band instead of an individual out of a nightclub group with 3 other musicians. You know, it took me a while to settle in to make the band move as a band, or help the band move as a band, instead of, you know, 3 other guys looking at this individual piano player over here playing his own thing, you know. And one day it clicked. I said, oh, so that's the way you do it.
And in those days, Jimmy Johnson and Roger Hawkins and David Hood and Barry Beckett were the rhythm section for Fame. We're talking about the early part of the 60s.
Great experience for me. He gave me the opportunity to get in this business as a professional. I was playing in a band, and we rented his studio to do a recording. And he got word to me that he wanted to hire me to work for him. Beginning as a part-time, and I was thrilled, I must say. It was one of the type, I wanted to do that type of work, but I didn't know how to get in it. And I was like completely honored and thrilled that I was given the chance. And Rick Hall is considered the father of Muscle Shoals music as we know it today.
Well, he really and truly, there were other hit records before Rick and after, and at the same time as Rick. But Rick had the most organized, you know, he had the recording studio set up and publishing company, and he had the first, I think, really good contacts with the major labels. And I think he just let everybody else see, he set an example for everybody else. For one thing, he let everybody else see what was required. I mean, I didn't know what a record producer was until I saw Rick Hall, and he taught me what a record producer was, not by telling me, but by me watching him work. And also, I realized through him the importance of having a relationship with people in radio and the people at the major record companies, and he's like the professor of the Muscle Shoals music scene to me, because I've definitely learned most of what I know from him.
Well, everything was working good with Rick. We liked working with Rick. But it came down to a point that we had to think about our future. Now, working with Rick, I highly respect him as a producer, but he had some producers coming in there that we didn't respect as much because they didn't know as much about producing as, say, Rick did, or as Jerry Wexler did. And we had the feeling we could do it ourselves.
And so in '69, we struck out on our own.
And when they did, they needed some financial help, and it's my understanding that Jerry Wexler came into the picture again and possibly lent them some money, and they came about 2 blocks from the studio here up on the hill on Jackson Highway, right across from the cemetery, and started their studio in what was an old abandoned coffin warehouse.
Starting all over again is gonna be rough, so rough, but we gonna make it, oh yeah. Respect yourself, respect yourself, respect yourself, respect yourself. She rocked me like the rock of ages.
unfortunate that I lost them, but I think the reason for my losing them as I get older and look back on it is the fact that I didn't share with them, that I could have kept them had I involved them in an ownership or a partnership type basis, and too late I learned that, you know.
I learned how to be a studio musician. I started the course anyway, working for Rick, and he was really rough on all the new guys at first. He really makes them, I think he puts them through extra rough times, not really rough, but he picks on them a little bit. But I think it's healthy, because I think it makes them realize that you have to be better than you are to do. I mean, when you start working with people who record in Hollywood and Nashville and New York, they expect to work with a professional. And I think Rick taught me quick that more was expected, you know, than what I was. And I have a world of respect for Rick for everything, for going it alone when he did against everybody else's advice and trying to do something here. And I think he's very talented. I won't say that he was the most fun person I ever had to work for, but he made me work, and I liked that was good for me, and now I really appreciate it.
I'm a pretty tough taskmaster. I think most of the guys will tell you that. I thought I was the first sergeant, or the old the guy who's, you know, slave driver, you might say. I've been called slave driver. I never thought of myself as being that, but I guess I could be termed that. And that was because I was so desperate, and because that I wanted it so bad that I probably pushed a little harder at times than I should have. But it paid off, so I'm not going to apologize for it.
I just hope that the chance he gave me, I made up for it and how hard I worked for him.
Last night, as I got home, about 10:30, there was the woman I thought I knew in the arms of another man. I kept my cool, I ain't no fool. Let me tell you what happened then. I packed some clothes and I walked out, and I ain't going back again. So take a letter, Maria.
The first gold record to come out of there, R.B. Greaves' Take a Letter, Maria, was a real high point, I think, for me and all of us, because in any given studio, there's always this sort of spiritual fear that you can't record a hit in this studio. I don't know what it is, but you have to break that barrier. And when Take a Letter, Maria took off and became a million seller, it was like, hey, we're okay, you know? We can cut a hit here, you know? We just have.
That took about 15 minutes to do, and that was just one of those things that clicked real well, with no problem.
I dress it to my wife, say I won't be coming home, gotta start a new life. We'll take a letter, Maria, I dress it to my wife, send a copy to my lawyer, gotta have a new life.
What I found was a family of people that felt their music very deeply, who weren't so absorbed in commerciality that they lost the sense of commitment to making the music right. As a matter of fact, they're so serious about it is that they don't get a take on a song that really satisfies them. I mean, they just can't sleep all night and waiting till the next day to get it right. Now, the way they work is that you kind of let them find their own point of view as musicians. You don't bang on their heads and say, play this way, play that way. If you let them find it, each of them will come up with a part that is not just a mechanical piece of music, but is part of an integrated whole point of view.
Playing as little as possible, but meaning the most. Whatever you play. They say the least is the best. You know? And it's learning how to establish moods and dynamics. when to play what where, and why do you want to play it there instead of somewhere else in the song. And to always remember that the vocalist is the star, not the player on the record.
1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2.
There are times when a woman has to say what's on her mind, even though she knows how much it's gonna hurt. Before I say another word, let me tell you I love you. Let me hold you close and say these words as gently as I can. There's been another man that I've needed and I've loved, but that hasn't made me love you less. And he knows he can't possess me, and he knows he never will. There's just this emptiness inside of me that only he can fill. Torn between two lovers.
Not too much has really happened that's new since the advent of the Bob Dylans and the Rolling Stones and the Beatles. Now, if it comes from America right now, there's a very good likelihood it'll come from Muscle Shoals.
We were at Meedham one time in France for an annual convention that we attend fairly regularly. And we had the #1 record in America at the time, Torn Between Two Lovers. That was a big moment.
Torn between two lovers, feeling like a fool. Loving you both is breaking all the rules.
And shoot the moon. Shoot the moon, oh yeah. Whoa. How can you expect to get anything that don't go on and shoot the moon?
They happen to have the largest recording complex under one roof in the entire world right there.
Well, it's completely two different things. Of course, this studio is better equipment-wise. It has more room to move around in. It's a better facility. It's an easier facility to work in. But you can never discount what was done at the old building at 3614 Jackson Highway. There was a lot of hits made there. There was a lot of good times there. I think there's a lot of magic that happened in that building. It was just too crowded. I remember when we left the old building, I gave it one last look, and I did feel real sentimental about it. But I knew that where we were going, it would be just a lot easier place. The old place got so crowded it looked like a pawn shop because of all the instruments inside, and it had a front door and a back door, and once you were in there, and you could go out and stand in the parking lot or stand around on the back porch if you wanted. That was one way to get out. This place is a little better because there's lots of places to go and to kind of get away from the scene, so to speak, if you want to.
We had about a 2,500 square foot building, one office that 4 of us shared. And now we all have our own offices and 31,000 square feet to share, and with indoor parking. So, you know, it'd be hard to, it's fun to think back, but I wouldn't want to go back.
Every day I'm looking for love. And I'm looking here and there, and I'm searching everywhere, and I'm looking.
Hold me all night, I'm a fool for you, baby. Hold me all night when I'm crazy, said I'm crazy.
Love you so. Take me down, way down slow, my time go. Love you more today. I'll be lost, I am sailing home again, across the sea. I am sailing. When you're in love with a beautiful woman, it's hard. When you're in love with a beautiful woman, wants to take that long shot gamble and head out the fire lane. Head out the fire lane. Head out. Giving it up for your love, everything. Giving it up for your love right now. Giving it up for your love, I said everything. Giving it up for your love right now, right now. My heart is aching for you, I can't stand. I need your loving and my soul is mad. But I'm giving it up for your love, everything. You may call me Terry, or you may call me Timmy. You may call me Bobby, or you may call me Zimmy. You may call me RJ, you may call me Ray. You may call me anything, no matter what you say. You're still gonna have to serve somebody. Serve somebody. Yes, you're gonna have to serve somebody. Serve somebody. Well, it may be the devil, and it may be the Lord, but you're gonna.
All four of the best friends I'll probably ever have the rest of my life. We all four look out each other. We look after each other. We always think in terms of four, because we'd have never got where we were without the four.
So I started here with $800 with Muscle Shoals Sound Publishing Company, and we started a publishing company. This was in 1969, March of 1969, and within a couple of 3 years, the publishing company had 6, top 20 records. I left Muscle Shoals Sound and went into business with my now current partner. This is our 10th anniversary this year, by the way, and we started an independent production company. A year later, we started our publishing companies. So we've always been pretty independent, with the exception of about a year and a half we were exclusive to Motown Records.
When Terry and I worked for Motown in 74, 75, we did the Temptations and Thelma Houston. Did that album there on the Commodores. And as a matter of fact, Lionel used to come up and sing demos for us. We're cutting Mac McAnally at the present, and it's the first time that we ever had. I mean, they're like all the little ducks are in a row. To cut an album, you got the label behind you, you got everything. All David Geffen wants is a good album. He says, bring me a good album, and which we think is going to be a hit, and he says it is, so I have to assume that's what it's going to be. And I'm sure that holds the key to what the future brings.
can stay in business without hits. However, hits really do help. If you get a hit, everybody thinks you're a genius overnight, you know, and they bring you all these different acts to produce and stuff. When your ability hasn't changed at all, you just become recognized. It's a very fickle business, you know. We could be hot next year. Muscle Shoals Sound could be hot the year after that, and yet we're doing two different types of music and two different kinds of setup. Our whole situation here is set up on independent production and publishing. We're not a studio that emphasizes outside rentals to other people. Even though, you know, the Hank Williams Jr. career was broken here, or rebroken or whatever, because the big albums that he's had were cut here. Other outside people have used our studio, Millie Jackson, people like that. But as far as us catering to that, we haven't done that in the past. It's really for our convenience to have a studio here and to try to keep it state of the art for the artists that we produce.
It's been great to see the Muscle Shoals area flourish in the music business. And even a lot of our own people here are not aware what takes place. That we have in the top 10 in the nation almost every week consistently. We have records that are written, produced, or recorded right here in the top 10. And sometimes the #1 record in the United States is made in Sheffield or Muscle Shoals.
So I think it's just been a team. No one person has done anything by himself here. It just took a team and a spirit and just a lot of hard work. A lot of hard work. I admire Rick and all those boys for what they've done.
Of Pebble Beach Studio in West Sussex, England. The Music Association was formed in 1975 with Buddy Draper as its executive director. New studios have joined, including Littletown, a gospel and country studio. Together, a demo and jingle studio. The association got an anti-tape piracy law passed in the state legislature and an Alabama Music Hall of Fame established. Terry Woodford of Wishbone was appointed to the Hall of Fame board. Woodford has also established the first 4-year commercial music curriculum in the nation at the University of North Alabama. Yes, the Muscle Shoals sound is cooking.